So if you're looking for the best guide out there for Rosaria, then you found it. Look no further, because this is going to be the most up-to-date guide on her since she got debuted. Rosaria is definitely one of the most underrated 4 stars in the game, and I'm going to tell you and show you why. We're going to go over different kinds of builds Rosaria, and then I'm going to do a showcase for one of those builds. We are going to be showing off her Cryo DPS build in today's video. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the first build we can do with Rosaria, and that's a physical DPS build. When you go for a physical DPS Rosaria, you are going to be focusing on using Rosaria's normal and charged attacks, and this means increasing her physical damage to as high as possible. In order to build this kind of playstyle, you want to run attack percent on your Sans piece, physical damage on your goblet, and crit rate on your circlet. This is because most physical type weapons don't have crit as their substat, so you'll need to build crit rate in order to hit bigger numbers. The artifact sets that's going to work really well here are the Gladiator's Finale and the 2 physical based artifact sets. That's going to be the Pale Flame set, as well as the Bloodstained Chivalry set. The 4-piece Pale Flame set is pretty good for Rosaria if you're focusing on physical damage, because it's very easy to activate this 4-piece set bonus. Your elemental skill is on a 6-second cooldown, so you can proc this effect really easily and very consistently. Running the 4-piece set is the same as running 2 Pale Flame pieces as well as 2 Bloodstained pieces, but you also get an extra attack percent bonus as well. So it is pretty good as long as you can keep up the 4-piece set bonus. The other physical build is to go for a Blood Flame set, and this means a 2-piece Pale Flame set with a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry set. This is going to give you a 50% physical damage bonus at all times. You don't need to worry about uptime and managing how often you use your E-skill. And then in terms of weapons, you got 2 physical weapons that we can go with, and that's the Crescent Pike and the Dragon Spine Spear. The Crescent Pike has a higher base attack, so it's going to give you an overall higher damage output because it's also increasing the damage of your cryo attacks. The Dragon Spine Spear has a much lower base attack, so this means that your cryo-based moves are not as strong, but your physical damage output is going to be stronger than the Crescent Pike. Crescent Pike, however, does have this extra passive ability that deals more damage as your normal and charge attacks hit and deal damage. So with this passive, it ends up being a little bit better than this weapon. Rosaria also easily generates particles, so this ability is pretty much always active. Your best 5-star weapon options for a physical build is going to be Staff of Homa and Jade Spear, because those have a focus on crit rate and crit damage, as well as just having a really high base attack and just giving you a whole bunch of firepower. Okay, next up is a cryo-based build, and with this one we are going to be building the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set because we're going to get tons of extra crit rate as well as extra cryo damage bonus. In order to go for a cryo-based build, we need to use her in tandem with Chongyun because we want to infuse our normal attacks with Chongyun's E-skill. We're also going to need a Hydro character to keep our enemies frozen, and then an Anemo character in order to reduce the cryo resistance of all of our enemies. Since the Blizzard Strayer set and the cryo resonance is giving us a 55% crit rate bonus, we are going to focus pretty much on crit damage. This means focusing on attack percent on the Sans piece, cryo damage on the goblet, and crit damage on the circlet. It's pretty sad that I have to use a 4-star circlet here because after many days of farming, I still have never gotten a 5-star version of this. I really do hope you guys have better luck. Moving on to weapons, the Blackcliff Pole is going to be one of your best free-to-play options for this because it gives you a huge crit damage bonus. Your 5-star option is going to be the Staff of Homa because it also gives you a crit damage bonus. Other weapons aren't going to be as useful because again, we want to leverage our high crit rate and build as much crit damage as possible. Another reason why Chongyun is so good here is because he gives us a normal attack speed increase as well as extra cryo shred. So currently my Rosaria has a natural 28.3% from all of the substats, so when we include the extra 55% from the cryo resonance and the set bonus, this goes up to about 80%. And then Rosaria also has a passive here that increases her crit rate by up to 12% for 5 seconds when she hits an opponent from behind with her E-skill. So we're borderline reaching 100% crit rate with Rosaria here. And then one thing I want to say about this build is that your normal and charge attacks aren't as big of a deal as you think it is, because when you're using Chongyun's skill, keeping them frozen and trying to reduce their cryo res with your Animo character, you don't have too many opportunities to use your normal attacks, because since Rosaria's E-skill is on such low cooldown, you're more so spamming that than your normal attacks. But you do get some opportunities to let loose a combo or two during your rotations. Just don't expect to be using Rosaria's normal attacks like 24/7 while using this build. Alright, the next two builds I think are her most practical types of builds, and this is a sub-DPS build and a crit rate support type build. In order to build Rosaria for sub-DPS, we want to increase her cryo damage as much as possible. We also want to increase her elemental burst damage as well. This means building the Blizzard set as well as a 2-piece Noblesse set. Your other option for more elemental burst damage is a 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate set. And this one's going to also give you extra energy recharge to help keep uptime on that elemental burst. Rosaria's burst, however, is only a 60 energy cost burst, so it doesn't take too much energy in order to keep it up. Her E-skill also generates a decent amount of particles, so she doesn't really have a problem with energy regeneration. As well as if you're using Rosaria with Cryo Resonance, she shouldn't have a problem with energy. So I would recommend the 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Blizzard over the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate because you'll get more damage. Emblem of Severed Fate is there if you need the balance of energy as well as damage. In terms of weapon choices here, you can use the Deathmatch, the Lithic Spear if you happen to have that, and then even the Catch, because this is going to increase your elemental burst damage by 32% and give you some extra energy recharge. But again, like I said, she doesn't really have too huge of a problem with energy, but this damage bonus is pretty nice, as well as this extra crit rate. However, if this means taking this off a Xiangling or a Raiden Shogun, however, then I wouldn't do that. I would only do this if you're not using this on any other character that can use this better. Staff of Homa and Jade Spear are also good choices here, but if you're not using Rosaria as main DPS, you'd probably want to save this weapon for a main DPS character. But still, options are options. And the goal here with the sub DPS was just to increase our elemental burst damage and our E-skill damage as much as possible, so I didn't really touch too much on crit rate. So this segues into our next support build, and that's the crit rate support build. This is built the same way as a sub DPS build, but we have a focus on hitting a minimum threshold on our crit rate. If we hit a minimum of 88% crit rate here, when we use our E-skill, we are going to reach 100%. And once you reach 100%, we activate the full effects of her passive skill. Whenever she casts her elemental burst, she will increase the crit rate of all of her party members by 15% of her own crit rate for 10 seconds, and you cannot exceed 15%. So this means in order to get the max bonus of this, you have to reach that 100% crit rate mark. So the 88% plus the 12% from her first passive skill gives us 100%. So if our focus is to reach 100% crit rate and not to worry too much about our own damage output, we can run a 2-piece Berserker set in order to reach that threshold. However, if you are going to do this, you only want to build it on the flower and on our headpiece. This is because our flower does not really affect our damage, and if you have a headpiece with crit rate on it, once you add the 2-piece set bonus, your overall crit rate is going to reach 35%, which is 4% better than a 5-star crit rate piece. However, if you do this, your substats are going to be a little bit weaker than a 5-star as well, so please keep that in mind. In order to hit the crit rate minimum, you can also use Hu Tao. Hu Tao's E-skill gives 12% crit rate to all of her party members after the effects of it run out. So if you run Hu Tao and her elemental skill passive, you only need to reach a 76% crit rate threshold. Now, you do not want to build the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set because the crit rate that's given here is not crit rate that will appear on your details screen when you get that bonus. That bonus only happens on the attack that hits an enemy that's frozen or affected by cryo. So if you're going for a crit rate support build, don't build the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set because it will not apply to her passive skill. When going for this build, you're also going to need to try to hit some energy recharge and crit rate substats so that you can hit that minimum. In terms of weapons, there are a couple of weapons that gives you crit rate, and that's going to be the Deathmatch, the White Tassel, and the Jade Spear. So those are very good options if you're going for a pure crit rate support build. So that's the info that you need to know in order to build crit rate support Rosaria. But sometimes you can go for a hybrid sub-DPS crit rate support build where you try to balance your damage while trying to hit the 88% crit rate minimum, but not quite reaching it. So instead of giving that full 15%, maybe you'll give 13 or 14% instead. Okay, now I really want to show you guys through math why 15% crit rate is really good. Now, if your crit rate is really low, say around below 50%, you can get up to 30% extra average damage with 15% extra crit rate. The higher your crit rate is though, the less additional average damage you're gonna get. Take a look at these simple graphs that I made that show the crit rate and crit damage ratio. I used Xiangling for these numbers. Around 40% crit rate and 80% crit damage has a pretty sizable gap. Increasing the crit rate to around 60% lowers that gap though, and then increasing it to 70%, the gap grows even smaller. But also pay attention that I also increased the crit damage. Now if you actually want the numbers, with 40% crit rate, there's a 30% damage increase. 60% gives you 23%, and 70% gives you 20% extra average damage. You'll see that with the 70% crit rate, I also increased the crit damage, so the ratio of crit rate to crit damage doesn't really matter and doesn't change the average damage increase at all. So this should give you a pretty good rough idea on how much 15% extra crit rate is going to affect your average damage output. Now there is a caveat to this, and it's that if you have a heavily invested Rosaria, she can end up dealing more damage than the crit rate she provides. It's also going to depend on how well you spend that 10-second crit rate buff. If you use it on characters that can't crit or don't do much damage, then Rosaria herself can end up dealing more damage. But a crit rate support build doesn't require you to level up her talents, so you can get a ton of mileage from her passive skill without investing any resources into leveling her talents. Okay, so let's give a demonstration on how Rosaria's crit rate passive works. So right now I'm running the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set, and remember that this does not help us with her passive. Her current crit rate is 28.3%, so when she casts her Elemental Burst, she's going to be giving a very small amount of crit rate to her teammates, even though we are running the Artifact set and the Cryo Resonance to give us more crit rate. But since it doesn't actually appear on this screen, it doesn't actually work with her passive. So we're going to take a look at Keqing. So right now she has 5% crit rate. Punishment. 9.2, so we got 4.2 extra crit rate. But even though we hit an opponent that was affected by Cryo, even though we have Cryo Resonance, that extra 15% crit rate did not apply to her passive. Okay, now let's see what happens when we have 100% crit rate. So my Rosaria now has 111.2% crit rate, so this is well above 100. And remember that the maximum that we can give is 15%, and in order to get that, we only need 100. So we're going to hit our cap even though we're above 100%. Swap over to Keqing here, and you will see that we got that 15% crit rate. It went from 5 to 20, even though we overcapped on crit rate. Okay, now let's do a demonstration where we are at around 88% crit rate. So my Rosaria now has 89.8, and so after we hit him with an E skill, we're going to go up to 100 and then give 15%. But before we do that, we're going to do it with just this, and you'll see that we don't quite hit that threshold of 15% extra crit rate. Now we're only at 18.5%, so we didn't quite hit that 15%. Okay, now here we go. We're going to try again, but we're going to hit him in the back with our E skill. We're now at 101.8. Cast our burst, and now we give 15% to Keqing. And so if you can't hit that 88% minimum, remember that you can run her with Hu Tao if you want to go for some kind of melt comp, and Hu Tao is going to give extra crit rate to Rosaria, making it a lot easier to hit that 100% crit rate minimum. I haven't tried this team out, so we'll see how well we do here.
Let's get down to business. Submit for judgment.
What a nuisance.
Bring you guys closer in. I should swap my Kokomi's weapon with something a little bit better as well. Oh. 11k on that. Kinda messed up there. Not what I wanted. That's a lot of damage. Going pretty good. Oh yeah, they're all frozen. Oh yeah, look at that. He's just permanently frozen there. Pretty nice. We can do this, I believe. Yeah, too bad he doesn't freeze. Yeah, we're not really hitting our crits. I swirled the wrong move. There we go. Got him. That reached me? Oh my god. There we go. That's the iframe that I was looking for. Yes. Those are the iframes we're talking about. Iframe that too. Iframe that. Okay, we're close. There we go. We got it. I want them to get closer.
One with my blade. Allow me. A touch of frost. Wind strike.
Submit for justice. Reset that. Keep them frozen. They're almost dead. We got this. And okay, we did it. Yeah, a minute there. And just really quickly, we'll just check the build again. This was my Kazuha Favonia Sword, level 80-90. Artifacts, 4-piece Viridescent Venerer. Talents 666. Not super invested. Just kind of like medium amount of investment. Let's see, Chongyun, level 70-80. Sacrificial Greatsword. Artifacts was Gladiator, Blizzard Strayer. I am C6 though. Talents was 9999, so that means without constellations was 6. Let's go ahead and check my details. 62 crit rate, 110 crit damage, 135 energy recharge. And then our Rosaria herself, 1500 attack, Blackcliff Pole, HP attack, cryo, crit damage. The constellations, C4. Talents, so our E skill was on 9, burst on 8, normal attack on 8, and our details, 28% crit rate, 206.7% crit damage, energy recharge 116. Like, this is not that strong. Like, 1500 attack is not that high. Who was our last one? Kokomi. Oh yeah, Kokomi was there just literally for the jellyfish to freeze enemies. And the freeze was really strong. It was pretty good. I think to make this a little bit better, I would probably switch this for energy recharge or sacrificial fragments. Or maybe even prototype amber because we get energy back. But yeah, I would build ER just to make sure I can keep my jellyfish up whenever I want. Or have it be reset with this. I can use it whenever I want. So that was a Cryo Rosaria build. And she was not passing on any crit rate, right? Because her crit rate was so low. It was only 30%. 15% of 30% is like less than 5% crit rate I was passing on. So yeah, my teammates weren't really benefiting from her at all. That's why this is fun, but you saw that like when you're switching through all your characters, you don't really get to use your normal attacks. You don't really get to use your normal and charge attacks that much with Rosaria. Sometimes there is downtime where you do use it, but you're just using your skills so much more. So that's why the hybrid crit rate support and sub-DPS build is probably going to be better. Because she'll still deal decent damage, I feel like, but she's also going to be able to help her teammates be more consistent in hitting their crit damage. But nonetheless, pretty fun build. And you know, if you are not a super whale and you don't really have much 5 stars, but you do have a Rosaria, this is pretty good. But we should mention that her C1 is pretty important for this type of playstyle, because when she hits a crit, her attack speed increases by 10 and her normal attack damage increases by 10% damage, so that's pretty good. Everything else is kind of quality of life, so an extra 5 energy when she does a crit with her E skill. So yeah, at least C1 for this type of playstyle. All right, that is Rosaria. Any questions? Leave it down in the comments. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch. Like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff. Till next time, I will see you guys later.